My parents are gone and my grandmother's gone, but I have thought about what possibly they would say, and I think my mother would say, as she always did, my son in whom I'm well pleased. My father would say, your reputation exceeds you, but he'd also say something like, well, now you're an official member of the Mutual Admiration Society. And my grandmother, who had a really great way with words, would say, pride goeth before a fall.
Hank and Elizabeth Romano Sames say they've seen it all. So much so that some of their best advice for others comes from their own personal successes and self-professed mistakes. Mistakes that have made them grow as a couple, as parents, as philanthropists, and more importantly, as mentors to the student recipients of their highly successful scholarship program for first-generation college students. Introduced to each other through Elizabeth's brother, who was a friend of Hank's, the couple say they knew they were meant to be together from the start. They would eventually blend their families together in marriage. Elizabeth and her 6 children, and Hank with his 2 children, all living under one roof in Laredo.
I first met Hank when he was a senior in high school at Nixon, and it was my first year of teaching. He was such a bright student. Then he left for the University of Texas, and I didn't see him again until he returned to work at Sames Motors. And ever since he's been at Sames Motors, he's been a proponent of higher education. He's promoted programs like Ford's Salute to Excellence, where they gave scholarships to kids. There was another one also where they gave awards to teachers who were nominated by students, and because they touched their lives in a meaningful way. And they even gave cars away for perfect attendance from pre-kinder through high school.
Well, we were friends since Little League, I guess maybe about 60 years. And I met Elizabeth when she married Hank a little over 20 years ago. I know them both, spent a lot of time with both of them. Hank's one of my best friends. And you know, I can tell you that they are some of the best people that we've ever had for Laredo.
Being generous with your community is nothing new to Hank. Born and raised in Laredo, he attended Laredo schools, then went on to earn a college degree from the University of Texas at Austin. Afterwards, he says there was never a doubt he would return to Laredo, but not to work in the family business of selling cars, instead to be a banker, his ultimate goal. But the recession of 1975 put a stop to that dream, and instead he accepted a job offer from his father working at the family dealership. Now 47 years later, he says it was the best decision he made, never once looking back or regretting his move into the family business. In 2002, Hank and Elizabeth saw the last of their kids graduate from high school, and the couple found themselves empty nesters. While Hank continued building Sames into the successful dealership it is today, Elizabeth started getting more involved in charity work.
Elizabeth, I think I first met about 30 years ago at a nonprofit, and we were there as judges, and subsequently, as she became more involved with the Laredo Area Community Foundation, I think through her leadership we really grew. With Irving Greenbloom, we had a good first president, and then she took over around 2009 for about 7 or 8 years, in our formative years, and through her leadership we grew to be established. She grew the assets from $1 million to $9 million, over $9 million in that period of time.
With more time on her hands and Hank semi-retired from the dealership as his daughter Evelyn now oversees the operations, the pair has focused their attention on their growing number of grandchildren, 17 with one on the way, as well as their growing their own foundation, which is the funding source for their Sames Scholar program.
I met Mrs. Sames back in 2006 when I graduated from Alexander High School and received the Hank and Elizabeth Sames Scholarship. Mrs. Sames took a personal interest in me, in my success. She would check up on me, actually just up until a couple of years ago. She'd call me, even way after the program ended, just to see how I was doing. Learn more about my family and how are your kids doing and where are you working now and what is your job now? And she's always been a role model for me. to be honest. You know, I think of her and I have very fond memories, right, of her smile and her cheer and just her sincere connection with me.
When asked where their passion to giving comes from, Hank and Elizabeth are quick to quote the Sames family philosophy that's been handed down through generations. It's the deep-rooted understanding that they are just mere stewards of their business, a business that'll be handed down to the next generation.
Elizabeth and Hank are great partners. They have balance, harmony, energy together. In other words, one creates the other.
You know, Hank's a very tall man, and Elizabeth, you know, she might make it up to about 5 foot. But don't think that, you know, Hank's going to be dominating her because of his size. No, it's quite the opposite. I think, you know, if it wasn't for Elizabeth, I don't know where Hank would be right now.
She reminds me of Queen Elizabeth, and occasionally when I got my nerve up, I was referred to her and tactfully as Queen Elizabeth, because she demanded and we responded and we all grew in the process. So I hope she understands that I meant that in a good way. Thank you, Queen Elizabeth. I enjoyed the journey and look forward to many prosperous years.
They have done so much good for Laredo that it improves the lives of this community. And we're very grateful to Hank and Elizabeth for staying in Laredo and doing for Laredo.
I don't think words could really put it or can really explain, right, the impact that it's had, not just on me, but even on my children, because it did change the trajectory of my life.
If Hank has the last word when they're discussing whatever their topics are, it might be just yes, ma'am. Because Elizabeth is as strong and as influential as Hank is, and together they're a dynamic duo, and we've all benefited from their efforts in of what they've done for Laredo.
Mrs. Sames, huge congratulations to you on your award. I know it's a great accomplishment for you, and I think it speaks wonders to all the impacts that you've had across the city.
Well, I'm right at home in my green go barrio. There's no place that I would rather be. The living is good right here in my barrio. This barrio will always be home to me. Down on the border in old Laredo, mariachi music and ticos fill the air.